Welcome to Walk the Talk, the virtual food summit. I'm your host, Emily King from Spira, and in this interview, I'm talking to Tiffany Tompkins about the role of organics in Aotearoa New Zealand. She is Tiffany Tompkins, who runs Organics Aotearoa New Zealand. She's going to talk a little bit more about that. And so in a similar vein to how we've been talking about house, we're now going to switch a little bit to organics, which is also, I don't want to call you a sector. What do we call you, Tiffany? Oh, you're muted. Unmute, and then let's, well, you start with describing your role and how you see it fits into the food system. And that'll help.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Emily, for having me today. I am the CEO of Organics Aotearoa New Zealand, which is the sector body for the organic value chain. We, and my job specifically is to fulfill OANZ's mission, which is to accelerate New Zealand's transition to organic regenerative agriculture for the health of our people, our communities, environment, economy, and climate. And one way I do this is by working across the whole sector to drive forward our sector strategy, which we published late last year. And that includes multiple projects to help us overcome obstacles so we can grow the sector stronger and faster. And so what's really cool about my role is that I get to work not with just dairy or horticulture, but with both of those, plus viticulture, sheep and beef, market gardeners, domestic producers, importers, exporters, processors, brands, retailers, input providers. I mean, it goes on. And it's really unique because we're an organization that's sort of the umbrella organization for the sector, but we get to take a really holistic view of the whole value chain. And it's really, I think of it almost like a bicycle wheel. So there's, a bicycle tire. So there's lots of spokes, and in the middle of that part that holds everything together is organic agriculture, organic farming. And so as the bigger that gets, the more it feeds and pushes out into those spokes. And so the larger that tire gets and the faster that wheel turns from our current food system towards one that's I think we're here to discuss today, that's more of a modern system that's truly clean and green. So it's a really great job, and I get to learn a lot, and I get to have my finger sort of across everything that's going on.
Great, thank you. What a neat description. Nice to think of the wheel, getting the wheels turning. So, I mean, there must be so many things. However, I'm going to ask you what the key challenges are.
Oh, yeah. There's a few. I would say the lack of financial resources for our sector is probably one of our biggest challenges.
Right.
We're not a levy body organization like OANZ or Sheep and Beef or Dairy and Z. And so when they're looking at programs and helping their producers, the majority of those producers are conventional growers or farmers, and they're not really typically investing in matters that pertain to certified organic. So there's so many things that we wish we could do to help support farmers. We're looking at extension programs, helping the sector, really take a leadership role in helping other farmers learn about organic growing practices to help transition to more sustainable or cleaner, food processing or food growing. But without funding, it's incredibly important or incredibly difficult to do. And I would say another key challenge for us is a general lack of understanding about organics. And coming from the US, this was sort of we've kind of gotten over the hurdle with this because organics has become so mainstream. And we still see here in New Zealand a direct challenges coming from synthetic input companies or distribution companies who are claiming that organics doesn't really have a space in New Zealand. And then other challenges like everyone else, it's supply chain issues, labor shortages, oil and gas volatility, disruptions due to climate change. I live in Blenheim. I've never been in so much rain in my entire life, and I know fungal pressure is quite significant right now. And I think about all these global challenges, and it feels like it's like an apocalyptic junk drawer. It's like things just keep coming up, and you're not exactly sure how they get there, but it just seems to be multiplying. And every time you open it, it's getting a little bit harder, and it's things just keep progressing, and we have to learn to adapt and overcome obstacles quite quickly.
Yeah, it's that adaptive approach that we all need. And if you're right across multiple sectors, that's challenging too, right? So with all of those things, how do you communicate messages to your audience? And I guess your audience is your membership.
So
trying to inform the New Zealand public. You're still battling that, like telling people why would you eat organic? You're up against things. You're up against the food price index. And other things. So let's get into that.
So we have a highly engaged digital audience that we talk to through email campaigns and social media, but we communicate directly with our members, and we're able to reach our members through their communication channels too. So like Kath was saying, about the collaboration and working together to make sure that the message is clear and that it's communicated out through as many channels as we can get to. And OANZ is not a consumer facing organization, but we're very cognizant that everyone can see what you do online. Everyone can forward an email. And so we need to be consistent in our messaging. And that's really important when we're reaching, any audience. So whether it's consumers, advocates, governments, that consistency is quite important. And one of the key projects we actually have going on through our sector strategy, and we have volunteers across the country coming together to work on this, is to help identify what messages are resonating and what we need to share. Because I think it's important for everyone to know that organic production goes way beyond growing food without the use of synthetic chemicals and pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers and GMOs. Even though that's so awesome and that's totally rad, we're going beyond like what the restrictions are or what the audit is. It's about really telling that story about and selling the outcomes of organic farming.
And what are they?
And so when we look at messaging and we have to take into account the principles of organics. And they're these beautiful common sense principles that I think anybody would relate to, say, yes, we need to do that. But they're really important, and they help identify the outcomes. So the first is health, right? Healthy food starts with healthy soil, with pure water that supports healthy plants and animals. So it's really about that soil health. And we know how important soil health is in our food system. The second is ecology. So healthy farming is based on agriculture that emulates and sustains natural regenerative systems. The third principle is fairness. And this is about healthy societies, right? Based on equality and respect and justice for all living things. I find this incredibly important when we talk about the use of pesticide sprays. There's reasons why people need to use PPE and hazmat suits when they're spraying with synthetic chemicals. It's the health of people, the health of workers, the health of animals, the biodiversity, and being fair and in that regard. And our last principle is care. So healthy future means caring for our land and ecosystems for generations to come. And it's really those principles that underlie organic certification, and certification was built to put trust into the system so that consumers understand and believe that what they're getting is.
And what are those certifications in New Zealand?
So you can get organic certified in New Zealand by several different organizations. So BioGrow New Zealand is an organic certifier. Assured Quality certifies to the organic standards that are have been established with across these organizations and in the world. Organic Farm and Zed is another one for domestic suppliers, and then the Huaparakure system for Māori Indigenous organic growers.
Great. And so you look for those logos, right? Like
you look for those logos that say, here's what these are certified by these certifying bodies. And what's really cool right now is we have an organic bill in Parliament, and we're working to with the Ministry of Primary Industries to write our New Zealand standard. What is organics in New Zealand? Because we're one of two countries that developed countries that do not have an organic standard. So it's New Zealand and Australia do not have organic standards. So that means, food that comes in or products that come in that say that they have, that they are organic, but may not have a certifier. They can say that they're organic because there's not a standard set that says, no, actually, this is what organic means. Mm-hmm. So you really do need to look for those organic certification logos, because those are certified products that are making sure that they are set to the standards of these principles.
Does it get confusing if you're importing your ingredients from overseas? It's not going to have BioGrow on it. How will you know to trust?
There'll be other countries have certification too. So products, and there's a relationship between the government and BioGrow to assure quality. There's a that says, if you're importing organic ingredients, here's the paperwork. Here's how we make sure that these products are certified based on the standards of their own countries. So there's reciprocity internationally as well.
Yeah, nice. So just quickly in the last couple of minutes, in addition to certification, what are some of the myths and misconceptions that you have to face? I know there's a lot, so maybe just focus on 1 and 2. And I do have one other thing I want to ask you if you don't.
Yeah. I think one of my favorites that I still get a lot is that organics is for hippies. Right. That one kind of baffles me, because I'm not sure. I feel like was quite a long time ago, in terms of just the whole notion of I guess modern day hippies, or whatever that means.
But what about organics being just for like rich people that can afford it?
Or rich people, or that it's a trendy thing that's you only see movie stars promoting and eating and stuff.
But is it affordable? Like, can people afford it?
It can be, yes. And I think there's a lot of organic products that are sold in local farmers markets that are doing an absolute great job of fulfilling the gaps. I think there's a lot of problems with distribution cost that also increase, food costs quite significantly across the board. But there are lots of products that you can buy organically. If you can't afford everything organic, there's a lot of organic produce out there that you can buy locally that I think is really, really a good starting point. There's lots of beautiful brands that produce organic products that you can find in grocery stores. And there's a lot of co-ops that support organic production and organic growers around too. So there's different ways to get it.
And just finally, there are different ways. Co-ops and things people often talk to, buying in bulk, buying straight from places and splitting them up. Can we just talk in the last minute about regenerative? Like, can you tell people what that means and what organic regenerative means? Yeah,
so while organic has a certified, a prescriptive sort of, the fact that we don't use synthetic pesticides and herbicides is one of the main difference between organics and regenerative, where regenerative, I think, is looking at a lot of practices that are very climate focused, that help. And I think a lot of this is based on organics, but it helps bring soil, like using cover crops, even though we use it a lot in organic practices. Regenerative practices have been using cover crops quite a lot to improve soil health and make sure that there's an increase of biodiversity. And so the difference is, although they work symbiotically, organic says we're starting without any harmful any synthetic chemical sprays. Regenerative doesn't have a set term, but it's an idea of practices that are very climate focused.
So there's, yeah.
So if we combine the two, saying, we've got organics.
The baseline would be organics, so you'd have
organics, and then grow and be,
and then you would add in the principles of regenerative,
and keep trying to do better, keep amending, keep learning, keep pushing for better ways that we can help solve the climate crisis.
Okay, great. Well, and that was Tiffany Tompkins from Organics Aotearoa New Zealand, and I'm Emily King from Spira. Thank you so much for joining us today at our virtual food summit. There's more to come.